The Malaysian Prime Minister warns the Philippines about bad Chinese money. Last week, Malaysian Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad made a state visit to the Philippines. He had a word of warning about another country, China. Speaking to a Filipino news network, Mahathir said, if you borrow huge sums of money from China and then you cannot pay, when the person is a borrower, he is under the control of the lender. So we have to be very careful about that. I'm sure he wasn't talking about any borrower in particular. He just said countries like the Philippines should regulate or limit influences from China. You know, so those borrowers don't get Sri Lanka'd. See, in 2008, Sri Lanka began construction of a deep water container port funded by Chinese loans. 10 years later, when Sri Lanka couldn't pay the loans back, China forced Sri Lanka to give them the port on a 99-year lease. A port that could someday become an ideal naval base, to be used against no country in particular. Instead, he focused on an ambitious $180 billion project he creatively called Build, Build, Build. But the problem was money, money, money. And that opened the door to Chinese investment. In 2016, Duterte secured $24 billion in investment, credit, and loan pledges from Chinese President Xi Jinping's government to upgrade his country's infrastructure. According to the London-based think tank Capital Economics, corruption problems are a part of Chinese investments, and the Philippines already has a trade imbalance approaching unsustainable levels, meaning it imports way more than it exports. And so, Mahathir told Duterte, you know, countries who take out big Chinese loans, I'm not naming names here, but maybe they should be careful. Fortunately for the Philippines, China has been a bit slow about making good on that $24 billion they pledged to upgrade infrastructure. And the Philippine Finance Secretary says the Philippines will definitely never get caught in a Chinese debt trap. I mean, sure, it happened to Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Montenegro, the Maldives, Djibouti, and a bunch of other countries, but it'll never happen to the Philippines. Mahathir also warned about too many Chinese workers. He said foreign direct investment should not involve bringing huge numbers of foreigners to live in the country because that might disturb the political equations in the country. In other words, these foreigners are taking our jobs! Since Duterte took office in 2016, somewhere between 200,000 and 300,000 Chinese workers have come to the Philippines. The population has basically tripled. Chinese nationals now get more than half the working visas granted by the Philippines, and the majority of special work permits. And a lot of them work in online casinos, which is a very interesting career choice. Plus, a lot of Chinese workers are in the Philippines illegally. Recently, the government has been conducting mass raids. He also called out China's territorial claims in the South China Sea. Trillions of dollars of shipping go through it, along with untapped natural gas and oil deposits. China claims basically all of it. Obviously, that competes with claims by both the Philippines and Malaysia. As I've said, Duterte has mostly backed down, even though the Philippines had the strongest claim after a ruling from The Hague rejected China's claim in favor of theirs. But while Mahathir was in the Philippines, he said China should define its so-called ownership of the South China Sea, while also saying he'd be totally fine with China's claims as long as they basically take no action on them. But somehow I don't imagine the Chinese Communist Party will be too agreeable about owning something without controlling it. They're not great at letting go. Just ask Hong Kong.
Am I the reason you get stoned every week now? Build up integrity, got you texting, emailing me, wanting me to feel with you. Baby, just face reality, move on.
Sometimes it's hard to face reality.